My wife, Sarah, had been counting down the days until her long-awaited girls' vacation. She and her two college best friends were finally going to Hawaii, something they'd talked about for over a decade, but never managed to pull off. I encouraged her to go. After years of working overtime at her marketing firm and carrying so much of the emotional weight of our home, she deserved this time to unwind, laugh, and reconnect with a part of herself that existed before full-time work, marriage, and adult life settled in. We weren't in a rocky place, exactly, but we weren't as connected as we used to be either. Maybe some distance would remind us both of what we missed. On the morning of her flight, Sarah kissed me goodbye in the driveway while the Uber driver loaded her suitcase into the trunk. She wore a loose white hoodie, dark sunglasses, and the excitement of someone about to escape the daily grind. "Be nice to Mom," she said, smirking. "And don't just eat frozen pizza all week." I smiled and waved as the car pulled away. Her mother, Diane, was coming to stay for a few days to help watch over the house. It was her idea more than mine. I didn't need a babysitter, but Diane had recently retired and was still getting used to her empty days, and Sarah thought the company would be good for both of us. I agreed, albeit a little reluctantly. Diane and I got along just fine. She was always kind, sharp-witted, and occasionally intimidating in a way only a mother-in-law could be. But we had never spent much time together alone. I figured we'd make it work. Diane arrived later that afternoon with a small overnight bag and a batch of chocolate chip banana bread wrapped in foil. "Peace offering," she said with a wink, "in case I start taking over the kitchen." I led her inside and helped her settle into the guest room. She looked around with a quiet nod of approval and made a few gentle suggestions for improving the lighting. That night, we had dinner, just something I threw together, and she insisted on doing the dishes. I offered to help, but she shooed me away with a playful glare. "I raised 3 kids, Alex," she said. "Let me feel useful." Over the next few days, we fell into a surprisingly easy rhythm. Diane woke early, did yoga in the sunroom, and spent her afternoons reading or watching old detective shows. We shared meals, traded small talk, and even laughed more than I expected. She told me stories about Sarah when she was little, stories Sarah never shared, and I told her about my work designing commercial spaces. She listened with genuine interest, which felt rare. I started looking forward to our conversations. Maybe it was the way she listened, or how she gently challenged my opinions without making me defensive. It had been a long time since someone had seen me like that. I didn't think too much of it at first. But late one evening, the energy in the house changed. I was in the living room working on my laptop when Diane came in wearing a soft gray cardigan over a nightgown and slippers. She was holding a mug of tea and looked thoughtful. "Can't sleep?" I asked. She shook her head. "Too quiet in here. And I keep thinking about everything and nothing." I closed the laptop and patted the couch beside me. "Wanna talk?" She hesitated for a second, then joined me. We sat in silence for a while, sipping tea. The only light in the room came from the small lamp in the corner and the soft glow from the TV. Eventually, she started talking about how strange retirement felt, how long it had been since she had real companionship. Her husband, Sarah's father, had passed years ago, and since then she had filled her life with busyness, but lately, the silence had been catching up with her. "I feel invisible sometimes," she said softly. "Like I spent my whole life being someone's daughter, then someone's wife, then someone's mother. And now, I'm just here." Her vulnerability caught me off guard. "I think you're more seen than you realize," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. "You're kind, Alex." The air felt heavier suddenly. We both realized how close we were sitting. I felt a strange flutter in my chest, a feeling I hadn't had in a long time. Connection, intimacy, danger. "I should get to bed," she said, standing slowly. But then she paused at the doorway, turned back, and added, "Thanks for listening." That night, I lay awake longer than usual, staring at the ceiling. I didn't do anything wrong, but I couldn't stop thinking about her words, or how she looked when she said them. There was something raw and human in her expression, something I hadn't seen in Sarah or felt in myself in a long time. The next night, it happened again. I had just brushed my teeth and was about to crawl into bed when I heard a light knock on my door. I thought maybe something was wrong. I opened it to find Diane standing there, barefoot in her nightgown, arms crossed gently over her chest. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "This is probably inappropriate, but I didn't want to be alone tonight." I froze. My instincts screamed to step back, to protect the line between what was safe and what was deeply wrong. But I didn't move. I nodded and stepped aside. She didn't climb into my bed. She sat on the edge, silent for a while. Then she said, "I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to feel like someone could see me for a minute. Not a mother. Not an old woman. Just me." The honesty in her voice shattered my defenses. I sat beside her, unsure of what to do with the ache inside me. Her hand brushed mine, fingers barely touching, and it felt like lightning. But then she stood. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "I shouldn't have come in." Before I could respond, she was gone. The next day, we pretended nothing had happened. She made breakfast, I mowed the lawn, and we avoided each other more than usual. That evening, she left the house and went for a long walk. When she came back, her eyes were red, but she smiled. "I think it's time I went home tomorrow," she said. I nodded. We didn't talk about the night again. Sarah returned the day after Diane left, full of stories about snorkeling, luau's, and the ridiculous outfits her friends made her wear. I smiled, laughed, listened, but I felt different, like something had quietly cracked inside me. In the weeks that followed, Diane didn't visit. But she sent me a letter in the mail, a real, handwritten note on floral stationery. We went on a weekend trip together, just the two of us, and for the first time in a long time, I remembered why I married her. And more importantly, she remembered who she was outside of work and stress and obligations. We laughed again. We kissed in the middle of a forest trail like teenagers. We started over, quietly. I never told Sarah about that night. I never will. It's not because I want to hide something ugly. It's because the truth would hurt her in a way that serves no one. Diane was right. It wasn't about romance or betrayal. It was about a moment when two people, both feeling unseen, almost crossed a line in search of something they lost inside themselves. Sometimes we teeter on the edge of something we don't fully understand, not because we're weak or selfish, but because we're human. And sometimes it's what we choose not to do that shapes who we become.